I recently posted a video explaining that there are exactly 8 builds in PoE if you really break it down by actual viable build rather than just setups, and if you kind of simplify everything. This is of course based on damage over time crit, proxy skills, or stacking. Proxy skills include minions, and then skills that rely on the health of your enemies, such as Detonate Dead for damage of corpses. It also includes trauma builds, which scale trauma and how you take trauma, as well as affix stacking builds in general. Here are some examples of the skills that I posted in the last video. Now, if you look here, you might wonder, okay, are there any builds that I missed? I mean, would anything fall into an additional category? The first obvious thing that you may think is, hey, what if it's attack or spell-based, not reliant on DOT in any way, not reliant on critical strike? Well, if you look here, I did mention that attack-based crit builds in my prior video, even Resolute Technique or Precise Technique, which eliminate your crit, still I consider a variant of an attack crit build because it is reliant on the critical strike as a concept. And so you are eliminating critical strikes as a bonus in order to scale something else. And so I categorize that under the crit attack category. Now, this is the reason why you might be looking at this and thinking, okay, what could the 9th build be? Is it something relying on controlled destruction support, which decreases significantly your critical strike chance, but scales more spell damage? Well, the first obvious answer for most players is that most people that actually use controlled destruction support are actually either just leveling, just using it as a setup to get to their endgame build, or they're actually using this in a damage over time spell build, a DOT spell build. Category 2 of the 8 builds. So that is not the answer. Now, a few comments on the video made me think. One is a person here, of course, they replied, I did not mention the Wretch build, which is scaling purely life steal as a means to do immense damage of chaos damage to enemies. Well, of course, that's true. The Wretch is this item right here, and 200% of your life leech applies to enemies as your chaos damage. However, of course, if you're paying attention, you can notice that I do have this category already. This is already listed under the affix stacking build. It doesn't have to be strength. It doesn't have to be intelligence. It doesn't have to be any attribute stacking. It can be life leech stacking. That is category 8 right there. Now, Polo 2005 is a longtime watcher and erroneously made this statement, saying that I'm missing aura and curse supports or magic find colors. Now, magic find color, that's true. Maybe you can consider that a build, but that's basically just saying, hey, you're adding cooling strike and scaling your magic find. I guess you could call that a build, but you're pretty much relying on some variant of a skill among the 8 categories. You know, maybe attack, maybe spell, crit, or DOT. If you're not doing crit or DOT, then your magic find's not going to be very effective because you're not going to be clearing very fast, in my opinion. Now, missing aura and curse supports, that's of course inaccurate. Every single one of these 8 builds use auras and curses. That's not a build in itself. Aura stacking, bane builds, which rely on curses, those all fall into these categories already. And all 8 categories use curses and auras. At least one curse, at least one aura, frankly, if it's any kind of decent build. Well, look at it, and what do you think? Can you figure out what is the 9th build? I actually did miss a category. There is a category which is not DOT or crit based. It's not minion based. It's not based on the health of the dead enemies, like Detonate Dead. It does not rely on trauma, and it's not affix stacking. It actually does not fall into these categories. Can't figure it out? The answer is skills, builds, which rely on the damage of your enemies. Reflect builds. Now, this is something I've never personally run. It's something that most people don't run, but it's a very familiar affix. We see it right here all the time. We see this kind of thing. Reflects flat damage to melee attackers, or of course, something like a Bramblejack. Reflects a % of melee damage to the attacker. Now, in and of itself, it's certainly a category that does not fit into the other 8 categories. It's not affix stacking. It relies on the damage of your enemies. It does not rely on the health of your enemies, and it's not really an affix stacking setup. This comment right here, of course, got me thinking about it, and is why I made this video. Adorbs, Totes Adorbs, who comments on the videos that I post all the time, they said, I'm glad you completely left out my build from the tree that I have used since 3.4 every single league start ever, and it's generally my most outperforming build. Under 5 divine of investment, it can outperform 500 plus divine builds, they claim. Clear bossing, and it has top tier in all mechanics. It's the next thing they said is it means the Geigen effect won't spike the prices on my build. Let people sleep on it. I am content. Well, I'm sorry, my friend. I'm not letting people sleep on it. Because first off, what is the Geigen effect? What he or she is referring to is right here, 2 times to my knowledge in the history of this channel, which was amazing to me. I've actually influenced the softcore trade economy with my posts, which was fascinating. My Stygian Vice video, very famous video of mine on the channel, very quickly got about 130,000 views. Very quickly. It's now sitting on 214,000 views, my most watched video. And it actually influenced the pricing of Stygian Vices, which was incredible. And then the other time to my knowledge is when I posted about crafting a 4-anoint amulet. This got quite a few views pretty quickly, I think like 75,000. And I did notice Stranglegas pricing modified after that, which was just fascinating to have that kind of power. But that's just a side note. What are they referring to? Well, I was thinking about it. I was thinking, what could they mean? But they gave it away by saying that it was since patch 3.4. It just took me a little bit of research. And then at this point, I figured out what they meant. And I posted based reflected damage, gluttony of elements, enjoyer, to which they seemed a bit surprised that I figured out. And this is, of course, based on the league that it came out. What is gluttony of elements? Casts an aura that causes taking any elemental damage to heal you and nearby allies instead. And it acts like a Val skill, and there's ways to up your Val skill duration. And I presume that's what they're doing. I won't go into detail on what I think they actually are doing. I think they might be doing Righteous Fire, because any damage you take is just going to like heal you instead. But I don't know for sure. I know they're doing some kind of reflect base setup, scaling their reflect all over the place, and just healing themselves. Because they're probably also doing a lot of damage conversion. Physical damage taken as fire, physical damage taken as lightning, whatever it might be. Making themselves immune to physical, and then therefore Ellie, and then more than likely taking CI, just to guess, to make themselves chaos immune. Don't know. But this is very accurate. This is a totally separate category, so I stand corrected. There are actually 9 builds in PoE.